Now, there are many kinds of presentations, of course, but all good presentation has some kind of structure underneath it. Even if the audience is not aware of it, that structure is what keeps your presentation from falling down. So we can be very simple and very basic. So you've all heard about the beginning and the middle and the end, which is a hallmark of basic storytelling as well, but it applies to presentation. That middle part is where we're going to be spending most of our time thinking about the issue. So this is sometimes called the body. So you have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Yes, this seems very, very simple, but you would be surprised how many presenters actually fail to have any kind of simple structure at all. So here at this part of the presentation, you would ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of this presentation? What is the objective? Who are the audience? What is their pain? How can I help them? How can I make a contribution? Remember, it is about them. It is about the audience. It is not about us as presenters. We want to do the research and prepare well to make a good presentation for their benefit, to help them, to inform them, to inspire them, whatever the situation is. So I recommend at the beginning to go analog, get away from the computer. You might use a whiteboard and sticky notes, especially if you're doing collaboration with others. Sticky notes works well on the whiteboard or on a window, whatever. I love using storyboard books or notebooks like this, or storyboard books, story notebooks like this one, and of course using sticky notes. However you do it, one of the keys at this stage is to identify that one core point. If your audience could remember only one thing, we hope they'll remember more, but if they remember only one thing, what would that be? You need to identify that core. So there are many kinds of presentations. It could be more of a teaching or information type of presentation, a how to do something. So that would be a situation where you have steps. You might have 10 steps or 5 steps, and you can organize your presentation around that in terms of steps. Another very common style of presentation is the more scientific one, or where you've done your own research or research with a group, where you would talk about the methods and the results of your presentation in detail, being very transparent so that your audience can question your methods and results later. And of course, you need an introduction to that and a discussion to follow, to talk about, well, what are the implications of this? So this slide here is a slide I did many years ago for a presentation where I was talking about this method and results style, which basically follows that beginning, middle, and end. And the blue part there represents the fact that in the beginning, at the introduction, you can have a bit wider perspective. Then in the middle, of course, you're getting more into the details of your research and your methods and results. And then you can come out again as you talk about the implications for society or further research and so on. So this is a very common structure for presentations. Again, the audience doesn't necessarily have to see this explicitly, but you need to know it's there and you need to build your presentation upon it. Another, probably the most common style of presentation, probably 90% of TED Talks, for example, are something like this. A lot of student presentations are something like this, where you have an issue and an idea, or a problem and a solution. Right? So it's at this stage, again, we're at the beginning, we're brainstorming, we're focused on the problem and ideas for dealing with that problem. This is where we can be collaborating with our fellow students or coworkers or researchers, whatever it is. We're not thinking about the introduction yet. It's there in the back of our mind, but as we're thinking about the problem and solution, then as we're doing that, ideas will come to us for how we can do the introduction and how we want to conclude it and so on. So we'll get rid of a lot of things that we don't need, and then we got the introduction going and we have the conclusion. So we have a really pretty good outline now. Now, it's not a requirement, but it's often very useful to put things in terms of threes. It's just very natural to people. People can easily remember things in chunks of 3. So you have that issue that you're talking about, and then you can break that up into 3 different parts where you go deeper then in each part, and the same for the solution. So these are not the actual slides, but I'm just simulating what your slide deck might look like in the beginning. So you've prepared, you've written things down on the whiteboard, or maybe you took notes on paper, that's fine. And now you've developed something over here. You see these slides. These are called bumper slides. And there we see the introduction. The audience might not see that word introduction. They're not going to see that word problem 1, 2, 3, and so on. We're going to put better bumper slides over that. So we need a topic, though. So let's say, just hypothetically, let's say we're talking about plastic pollution. Okay, so we take the first part. The problem was broken up into 3 parts, right? So let's just look at the problem. So we could first talk about the amount of plastic pollution, where it is. This would be where we'd show a lot of data and photographs and so on to show where the pollution is and how big of a problem it is. Then we could go in and talk about the causes of that. There's economic causes, there's cultural causes, there's economic causes, consumer, related causes, and so on. And then finally, what is the impact on that? So if we did that, then we could have slides where we go in. There's the title slide. Then there's the one for where we show lots of different data. These are just the bumper slides. We'll put in the other slides later. But now we have kind of a basic outline. And we do the same for the solutions. And then step by step, you can make slides based on those sticky notes or the other notes that you wrote down. This is a very simple way. It's a very basic way, but it's something that will make it really easy for your audience to understand. So again, this is that basic, beginning, middle, and end. And you can also apply it to something like this, which is a friend of mine, Guy Kawasaki, likes to do these kinds of presentations for his keynote, where you have a kind of a top 10. You could start at 1 or start at 10 and count down, but humans love that. We love this. We're pattern-seeking, individuals, and we're just crazy about countdowns. You do it for music and everything, so top 10, whatever. This is a very useful way to do it. Now, no one can usually remember all 10 of those things that you went into, so this is why it's really important to have a handout, I think, for all presentations, or most presentations, but certainly something like this. If you had a handout, then, no problem. So that will remind people that you went into detail and you told stories and so on based on each of these numbers. Okay, so we have basic presentation structure, beginning, middle, and end, intro, body, conclusion. The point is, even though it's very simple, you want to take them someplace from a state of not knowing to knowing, or being demotivated to being motivated. Whatever the situation is, you want to take them someplace. You might be teaching, you might be just informing them, you might be trying to persuade or inspire, or a combination of all those things. But you need structure. And this reminds me of one of my favorite movie directors from the old days. And he said movies, but I put stories in there, but you could put presentations too. Let's say presentations need architectural structure, which is completely forgotten once you see the movie. So if you don't have that structure, everything is just going to fall down. It can be very basic, right? But if you don't have it, it's all going to be for naught. So even a very simple structure like I've presented here will really help you, and it will, of course, help the audience later on. Okay. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sure you have many questions. You can go deeper into this. You can check out my book, Presentation Zen. But I hope this helps you a little bit, at least get started, and best of luck on your presentation.